and I said, now, one thing we need to get straightened out, and I was very nice to the man, offered him a cup of coffee, sit down. I said, one thing we need to get straightened right now is it true that I have been chosen? This is not some little computer thing. Somebody requested this audit. And he said that was correct. But he said our policy does not allow us to tell you who asked for the audit. I said, well, I have hundreds of organizations I'd like you to audit. Can I give you the names of those? And as it turned out, my audit came directly from the White House. It came from Hillary Rodham Clinton's office, I later found out.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
How did you find that out, Tex?
Well, through a sort of a circuitous route, I had been asked, a private detective for, who's the gal, Paula. Remember Paula Jones?
Yes.
Her attorney was Rutherford of the Rutherford Institute. Whitehead, head of the Rutherford Institute, was representing her. And their private investigator called me one day on a Friday afternoon and asked me, did I have any information about Bill Clinton and the sexual bimbos? I said, well, no, I really don't have anything on that. Everything I know is what I've researched that others have looked into. I don't have any first-hand information. I'm not interested in that. And the man thanked me, the investigator, Gianni, thanked me. But what I didn't know was his phone was wiretapped by the Clinton White House.
Huh.
And the following Monday morning, the IRS called up and said, we want to come and audit you and start tomorrow. Now, it's interesting that it was Christmas week, and I'm a Christian ministry, and the IRS doesn't work Christian week. They actually dragged IRS agents in on Christmas week and said, get to work on this guy, find out what he knows and why the investigator is talking to. I called up Whitehead, and he said, he said, everybody, our investigator, has called to try to get information to help us on the Paula Jones case. Within days, the IRS initiated an audit of them and said, and we've been notified that we're going to be audited. Now, by the way, this never made page 48 of the New York Times. You see, they cover up these things. And I believe right now there must be people sitting in prison cells, detainees, potential terrorists that we don't even know about. Because I'm telling you, Johnny, if they come tonight and pick you up, they will give a national security letter, for the first time ever in history, something they call a national security letter. They will give that to your wife or your husband, and it will tell them they can't even tell neighbors or friends or family that you've been picked up and taken away, disappeared. If you do, then you have violated national security, and they'll come get you. I believe today there may be thousands of Americans that are just missing.
Huh.
And it may be like down in Argentina, they call them the disappeared. They were just the disappeared. They were tortured and murdered. Now, it might be that because you have this radio show, because I have a radio program, because I have these books and everything, they're afraid there'll be a gap left there and there'll be too many people that complain. It's too obvious. But it's just a very frightening thing that we have, that the IRS was able to do that and spend years to audit me. And then, by the way, after they finished auditing my ministry, then they turned around and spent 3 years to audit my personal tax returns.
And you were victorious on both accounts.
Yeah. And so, I love this. Other than it's just a big irritant, but you know what it was proof to me of? Everything I said was true.
Mm-hmm.
If we were making all this up, what are they so worried about? Why do they want to shut up Tex Morris? I mean, if I'm just a wacko nut, conspiracy nut, why don't they just laugh at me? Why are they so concerned?
That's a good point.
This validates everything that we're talking about, because they're frightened to death of you and me, John. This is the amazing thing. They believe words are more powerful than bullets. Your radio show is more powerful than an M1 tank or an F-16 aircraft, and they know it, and they're frightened to death of us because of truth. And that's why I wrote Codex Magica. We come back to Codex Magica, but I'm not trying to promote this book.
Yeah, well, I want you to tell people how to get this book and all the information, because it's such a valuable book, Tex.
And by the way, I don't mean to frighten people, because, you know, I know I was called out, I was selected, and most people are not audited. And I'm not sure the Bush administration is as vicious in use of the IRS. The IRS commissioner at the time was a woman named Margaret Richardson, and she was a college classmate of Hillary's.
Oh.
So you know, and I wrote a whole book called Big Sister is Watching You, Exposing Hillary.
I read that.
Yeah, so, you know, this didn't get me in good stead with the IRS and all that. But isn't it a shame? You know, that's what Nixon got in so much trouble for. He had an enemies list. And they said that they were afraid he was going to use the IRS to go after his enemies, although there's no proof that he did. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of proof that Clinton did, and I would be surprised if Bush hasn't too. Mm-hmm. So again, we're moving deeply into the morass of a police state.
Oh, and, without a doubt.
And I wanted to show people, listen, folks, this is true. And, you know, the best, you know, nowadays people like evidence, proof, and I agree with them. So I have written a book here that actually has pictorial proof. When you see these people giving, these are not just inadvertent signs. It might be, you know, I give the benefit of the doubt to people, but when you see over and over, and they're contorting their hands and their faces and their bodies in such shapes, and then I actually show the Freemasonry dictionaries and encyclopedias, Rosicrucian textbooks, textbooks from the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis, an occult organization, and all of these actual occult manuals, and I show that some of the biggest names in the world in entertainment, banking, politics, education, I mean, household names, and they're all occult magicians. They are Satan worshipers, et cetera, et cetera. And I show that in this book. And I believe that even if 70% of this book was true, it should be enough to make people fall off their chairs and get really, really disturbed.
And you name, I mean, there are people with pictures in there that would just shock people. I think you had one of Mandela, Police Chief Moose, Queen Elizabeth, Madeleine Albright, Katharine Graham, you know, the Washington Post, Eisner, Gloria Steinem, Marlene Dietrich. I mean, these are people that give all signs of the various covert signs of Freemasonry and other secret societies, and there's a whole bunch more of them in there, and that's why I want people to get this book, and they can do it easily. Can they not text just by typing in www Power of Prophecy, or what's the best way for them to do it?
Sure, they can even go to Google and put in Codex Magica, and it'll have, you know, a number of other places to get this book. But we certainly offer it at powerofprophecy.com. Now, I want to mention, when they get the book from us, we do put them on our mailing list, and then they get a free subscription to our newsletter. And that'll probably continue for about a year or so. To them, it's absolutely free. Anybody who orders anything from our ministry, whether it's a CD or a book or a video, we just give them a free newsletter as well. So they'll have our newsletter. Next month, I'm going to be exposing more of these secret signs, and you'll see a number of people. I have pictures in my newsletter. The following month, I'm going to be talking about how President Bush is totally under the thumb of some satanic Jews. And remember, I said satanic Jews, not all Jews. And I proved that very, very carefully. You'll see some amazing things. By the way, in this month's newsletter, talking about pictures and Codex Magic and the secret signs, I have a very special picture for my newsletter readers, Johnny. It's a picture of a Jewish rabbi sitting on Saddam Hussein's golden throne in Baghdad. He is the chief of chaplains of the New York Army National Guard, and he's in Army uniform, and you have to see it to believe it. They've actually put a Jewish rabbi on the throne of Saddam.
That's amazing.
And the picture is there. And, of course, it has symbolic significance. As you know, it was Babylon, which was is modern-day Iraq, that took the nation of Israel captive for 70 years. And that was, remember, Jeremiah prophesied that was going to happen because of the sins of the Israel people. And it did happen. And consequently, then, for centuries, they wanted revenge. And Israel then used their proxy, the United States military, to invade Iraq. And we have conquered it, and now the oil is now flowing across the pipeline over into Israel and going to the port there, to Haifa. And Israel is receiving billions of dollars from Iraqi oil, and I have documentation of that. Meanwhile, they actually had a Jewish rabbi, the chief of chaplains for the Army National Guard of New York State, sitting on the throne of Saddam Hussein, a solid gold throne. And you have to see it to believe it. And, of course, the key here is that the Iraqi war is not only for oil, but also for Israeli hegemony and domination of the Middle East, because this has long been the goal. Jimmy Carter, and, you know, he wasn't the best of our presidents, I admit that. But he did tell the truth when he was talking about the peace talks between Israel and Egypt and the Arabs that he tried to set up, and the Palestinians. And he said that there could never be peace in the Middle East because Israel does not want peace, said Carter. What Israel wants to do is own and control the whole Middle East because they believe God's given it to them. So anything they do, he said, is only for show because they believe they're superior to all other races on earth, and they consider the Palestinian people as nothing but insects and cattle.
Jimmy Carter said this?
Yeah, Jimmy Carter said in his biography, his memoirs, and so he couldn't get Menachem Begin to get off the mark. Begin said, the Bible says it's all ours. We don't have to give anything back to these animals. Mm-hmm. And that's what he privately told Carter. Carter says, with an attitude like that, when you think you're a superior race, you know, whether you're a Nazi or the new man of Soviet Stalinism, or whether you think because of the Jewish Talmud, if you think you're superior. And this is the thing, Johnny. The wonderful thing about Christianity is Jesus said, whosoever believeth. You see, he is no respecter of persons. So we can quickly dismiss with Nazism, Zionism, Stalinism, all of these things, even the white supremacy, that doesn't work with Christianity. Because Jesus said, whosoever will may come. And I like that.
But, you know, I wanted to ask you something, because last week we were talking about this, and as well as the different secret societies. So every morning this week, Texe, on Good Morning America, I think it is, ABC, they have done a special on different secret societies. They did Opus Dei. They did, I think it was Freemasonry today. Uh-huh. And they had people come on who supposedly are higher up in these organizations. And, of course, you know what they're saying is that we're not secret, we're private, et cetera, et cetera. But you've studied Freemasonry as one of many secret societies.